So this is called leadership presence. I have a lot of clients who are senior leaders in organizations all over the world. And what I've noticed is that they're really good at the technical side of their job. But sometimes they're not so good at people. What I've noticed working in the field that I work in, I work mainly in financial services, which are an interesting group of people, to say the least. And what I've noticed is you get a lot of highly intelligent technical people who have always been rewarded for doing well in exams. And they get promoted because they are good at their job. The problem with leadership for these really technically gifted people is they have to start talking with other people. Yeah? And sometimes these people take to it really, really well. Other times they find it a bit of a challenge. As we progress as an economy, as a corporate village, it's important to understand that leadership and the perception of leadership is changing all the time. Yeah? What I've noticed just in the short time that I have been working with senior people is the accent that people are now putting on communication as a leadership trait. And again, take a leader of maybe 40 or 50 or even 60 who've been promoted to a job, sometimes they find it difficult to get out and affect staff morale, to help people to become creative. I imagine people at Apple don't have a problem with creativity, yeah? Because the whole culture at Apple is geared towards people being able to express themselves. They have obviously a late expressive leader, etc. But in other areas, it can be complicated. So let's start with the I word. Joanna mentioned it, integrity. Could someone tell me what integrity looks like? Dora.
Yeah, think, act, and speak the same thing.
So say that again.
Like be what you say, what you think, and how you act is congruent.
Perfect. That word congruence, does everyone know what congruence means? Yeah. Well, I'm just checking. Okay. But it's extremely important because so many people, when they say things, their body simply disagrees. And it's amazing how often you can be sitting in a meeting, somebody is saying something that may sound positive if you listen to simply the words, but the tonality is different, their body language betrays them. But I think some of that is people simply aren't living in the moment. There is a lack of presence. They are simply saying what they think they have to say. As you start to climb the ladder to a place where you want to be, as a place of leadership, I think it's crucial that integrity has to be the bedrock. But everyone has their own personal version of what integrity means. So let's look, why live with integrity? I personally think it's easier. Living with integrity, it's going to Joanna's point, if you never overreach, people will start to bank on you. They will start to believe that you deliver what you say you'll deliver. And sometimes it's worth taking a short-term hit if the longer picture remains clean and pure. And I think the most important thing, we've just been talking about values, it serves as a platform for valued judgments. Because I do this exercise a lot with people in the banking sector. And what's interesting is a lot of them have never really thought what they stand for, which is extraordinary. Because how can you possibly know how you want to live your business life if you don't really understand what motivates you? Because obviously there are materialistic motivations like I want to make lots of money and I want to improve my career. But if you get to a position of great responsibility, it's surely more than that. But I think the things to be mindful of are rationalizing decisions that lack integrity. Okay. Arthur, hello. Question. Let's say, for example, you run an enormous global chemical company, okay? And your chemical company in a far-off land that has had an accident, and a lot of toxic sludge has slipped into a river, okay? And to clean up that toxic sludge, it's going to cost you $500 million. Or you can take a fine of $50 million. what do you do?
I think better you spend the money to clean the garbage.
That's amazing. I wish the world worked like that. Yeah, but it's true, isn't it? I'm sure everyone would agree with me that the right thing to do is to clean up the mess. But it's interesting when you have multiple pressures, how sometimes that doesn't happen. And I think the most important thing is make sure when you justify something, it's not a means to an end just economically. You need to think of the whole picture. And lastly, I think this is a really important point to make. Sometimes if your values aren't in line with your company's values, you really need to be comfortable saying, okay, I'm going to try something different. I'll give you a good example. There's a guy I've just taken on in the US, and I used to work with him. He was a learning and development specialist in New York, and he resigned from his job. And I said, why have you resigned? He said, I just didn't think the people I was working for particularly cared about learning and development. And I thought, that's the kind of person I want to work for my business, because he actually stood for something, and it tells me that it's something that really matters. So when it comes to integrity, you need to work out what you stand for, and then you need to execute it every day. Does that make sense to everyone?